So today I'm going to be taking you guys through a data engineering roadmap. Now for those that want to become data engineers, now this is the roadmap that I'd recommend that you actually follow in becoming a data engineer, right? It's a nice framework that I've sort of designed to help you understand what are the steps that you need to take. Now the very first beginning part, as you can see at the foundation here, you need to have data engineering fundamentals. Now, some of the key data engineering fundamentals that you need to learn, it's things like what is data engineering, right? At a very basic level, understand what data engineering is all about. You want to learn about data pipelines. What is a data pipeline, right? Get that foundation understanding. Learn about data lakes, data warehousing and stuff like that. Really important concepts to be familiar with as a data engineer. You want to learn about databases, different types of databases, what kind of data is stored by this kind of because there's so many different types of databases, and you need to know their use and application. Because as a data engineer, honestly, companies come to you to understand what database they need to use based on the type of data that they want to store. So you need to have a very good understanding of that, right? Then there's data modeling. Data modeling is very important for you to understand. You need to understand data movement, right? Streaming data, sort of batch processing, and you need to know when is it best for you to stream data, when is it best for you to use batch processing. So some of the key things that are important to understand as a data engineer. Now, if you want to learn all of this in a bootcamp, we do have an academy where we teach people all of this stuff. So our bootcamp applications are currently open, so you can go to our bio or just send in the registration before it actually closes, right? So now, once you've mastered your data fundamentals, I want you to learn SQL, right? SQL is what I want you to learn as the first programming language, right? But I want you to pay attention here. So over here, I've got the different tools. People always ask me what tools to learn as a data engineer, what and all of that. There's so many tools out there, right? But some of the key tools that I recommend that you maybe at least be familiar with, Databricks, Snowflake, dbt, but Databricks is much more popular, so I'd recommend that maybe start with Databricks and you can move on to the other tools as you go, right? So while you're learning SQL, I want you to run SQL scripts on Databricks, right? You're learning your SQL fundamentals while on Databricks. Now, before you move on to Python, I want you to apply TCP. This is my abbreviation, by the way. So TCP is your transformation, cleaning, and processing, right? So I want you to learn how to transform data using Python, SQL, right? I want you to learn how to clean data using SQL. I want you to learn how to build a data pipeline using SQL, right? You can actually build your data pipelines on Databricks. They do have a free version that allows you to practice all of that, right? Now, once you've mastered TCP on SQL, I want you to move on to Python. Now, learn Python fundamentals. While you're learning Python, remember, you're learning it on these tools, right? And once you feel like you've got a solid understanding, I want you to have a focus on TCP, right? Learn how to transform data using Python, clean data using Python, and build data pipelines using Python, because your bread and butter as a data engineer is to build data pipelines, right? You need to clean data and then move it from different systems. That's basically building data pipelines, right? So once you've mastered this is where you move on to the big stuff. This is when you move on to distributed processing. Now, distributed processing is when you learn how to process data using multiple computers. This is very useful, especially if you're working in an organization that processes large amounts of data. If you're working with data that is way too much, you have to move over to using Apache Spark, right? Now, the cool thing is that Databricks was actually built by the people that actually sort of like created Apache Spark. And now the nice thing about this is that Databricks is built on that foundation, which is why Databricks is so good at processing large amounts of data. So learn about data processing. In the process, you might be introduced to PySpark. So it's basically carrying over your Python understanding, but PySpark is basically a Python API on Apache Spark. So how you can actually do all of this big data processing using Python on Apache Spark, but platforms like Databricks and others that are built on the foundation of Apache Spark, is really great. I think the rest of those tools also are really great at processing data because they all use distributed processing sort of like foundation or methodology. Now, once you've mastered this stuff, this is when I want you to move over to cloud computing and infrastructure, right? Look, it's really important for you to understand Azure, GCP, AWS. These are some of the things that are important for you as a data engineer to understand, because A lot of the data is sitting in this cloud platform, so you want to have that understanding, and depending on the company you work for, you might find yourself using a lot of cloud native tools like within AWS or Azure and stuff like that. So you want to, once you've mastered all this, I want you to learn this part. There's a couple of tools you can learn about here, right? Databricks, Snowflake, dbt, Fabrics, BigQuery, Apache Kafka. This is actually really good for streaming data. But if you are learning data engineering, this is basically where you start. The tools, you need to choose the tool that you want to start with, and then as you become better, you can move over to other tools. But it really depends on what the company is using. So this is a data engineering roadmap for those that want to become data engineers.